17, 16 on here. Pretty cool. So this is the first Zoom post Meetup in London. That was fun. That was cool. Definitely a much better turnout than I anticipated. Not that I expected anything bad, but it actually went really, really well. So it was a pleasure meeting you guys. I hope we can definitely do Portugal next as soon as possible. But we'll definitely keep y'all updated on that. And then, I mean, here in the US, I don't know, we'll see. Just depends how many people we have over here and where exactly. But yeah, like I said, today's Zoom primarily focused on getting back into rhythm. We're going to talk about where we left off from 4 weeks ago, because I don't remember at all what we talked about. I do remember a little bit maybe, but in terms of where the biases were at the time and compared to where price is today. So I'd rather just pretty much give a overall general walkthrough and then just give you guys like what potential biases are showing to me based on what we have right now in terms of price. So let's go ahead and get started. And then of course afterwards we can cover whatever you guys want. If you guys just pretty much anything you guys want, we can cover. Since we do have a couple of people on here, it has been a month. I'm sure you guys might have some questions. So let's go ahead and get started. Based on what we talked about with DXY, at least in terms of like a month ago, was that we were looking for the immediate potential continuation based on a 3-day wick, and that unfortunately is not what we have gotten internally as of right now. However, where this is a bit concerning is really if we're going to play based on this POI. We did have potentially a continuation BOS, which means that internally there was some sort of bearish order flow showing us potential willingness to go lower. However, the internal leg was never broken, so I don't want to consider this as a confirmed reaction and then order flow disruption, because obviously if that was the case, then we would anticipate buys somewhere there. So I wouldn't consider that order flow disruption based on the time frame and the swing bias that we're talking about, mainly because the internal reaction did not take out the overall leg. So as of right now, this would still technically be bullish, and as you can see, we cleared liquidity and now give the internal reaction there based on solidified points. And why that is interesting, let me actually delete all the extra stuff. Okay, so we'll leave that. Is because this, in my opinion, I wouldn't want to consider this, even though you can, is a liquidity grab of the POI. 3 things that can happen at a POI: the open 50% or the full-on liquidity grab. But more so, how I'm seeing this is potentially that solidifying this as a swing low in comparison to a previous swing high. So this would be technically right a type of CBOS internally. However, excuse me, because technically this is still bullish, right? I don't want to be too tied down to the bearish bias as of right now. The only reason why I say that is because technically we are from a low into a high into a retracement, and we have seen CBOS. That means that the internal pullback is technically bearish, but now as we transition higher, then if we zoom in here, that could technically be a CBOS, but in correlation with the overall swing bullish bias. However, right, even though that could technically be true in terms of this pretty much transitioning into an overall bullish bias, the internal is bearish, and that based on the swing continuation BOS, swing liquidity grab, this signaling to us that we are technically bearish. And I mean, you can even see that with the order flow that's being provided for us right now, right, that technically we are bearish. And if you're asking why I'm not using the immediate and right here, because that could probably be like what, an 8-hour POI. Yep, there you go, it's an 8-hour POI. If you're wondering from that. So I always try to go from the bottom, and I do that with pretty much any type of SC. If there's like a wick here but the candle is over here, it's probably a higher time frame SC, and I'd rather confirm that as the POI so I can make sure that I am in the trade. So that's just kind of like a small reasoning for that, if you're wondering. So where this is concerning now is the internal is bearish, but technically we could sway towards the bullish sense from the overall picture, but like as we said, the internal is bearish. So this is a bit conflicting now in terms of having a bias, because you can realistically go solely based on that higher time frame bias and pretty much consider an internal pretty much liquidity grab here as a internal liquidity grab, and this being high momentum, low momentum, and go higher, which is potentially the case. However, because we're dealing with, let's say, a POI here, right, we know that the internal now, which is the minor intraday, is technically bearish. So in my opinion, this isn't something that I would want to immediately be bullish on as we tap on the POI, mainly because of this. Right, and if you are wondering what that is, that's obviously a confirmed reaction, which inevitably failed. So this realistically is a high into low, into retracement, and we're minimally looking, or at the minimum, we are looking for this target to be met. So in my opinion, we are still going to see potential price lower. However, what happens at this POI is obviously not up to me or you. So although we could argue the bullish sense, I would say that realistically right now we are still internally bearish, and that could be for like maybe the next day or two. And if we're considering as well the weekly closure, this is probably going to look dumb. Yeah, it looks pretty bearish for the most part. So I wouldn't be surprised if that internal bearish bias is continued, and who's to say we just don't reach, or we don't just reach, right, a much deeper discount, and who's to say we don't just come back into a previous POI. Obviously same scenario here where we would need a transition to technically look for that longer term position, only because the internal is bearish, just like as it is from a minor intraday, just as it is from a major intraday, and just as it is because of the swing liquidity grab. So excuse me, as of right now, I am looking for the internal liquidity to be met, and then see what happens either at POI1 or next week at POI2, because this would be technically the week's low, and that could be seen as potentially liquidity. So who's to say we don't do something dumb like that? And the reason why I say that is because this is a continuation BOS, meaning we are still technically bearish. So this would be the sign of unwillingness, a confirmation, and then a potential reaction. Who's to say we don't do something like that? But that's obviously just optimistic talk at this point. As of right now, all I know is that we're technically still internally bearish, and we cannot convert unless we get a relatively strong transition. So that covers that. Would love to see a type of transition, but we are prepared for the internal continuation. Next, AU. Let's see. Yes, I do remember this. We were technically bullish, because this is kind of what I'm trying to talk about with the DXY, where we saw the liquidity grab be taken, and then seeing what can happen from the internal sense. That's kind of what we were anticipating here, where we got the internal liquidity grab, but it's really continuation BOS. If we're looking based on solidified points, right, that solidifies the low as a swing point, so this is still continuation to the downside. So now that we've broken through XPOI, in my opinion, we are probably going to see much lower pricing, only because the CBOS and the internal POI, which is technically bullish from a major intraday, but then the minor intraday was still technically bearish, and that broke through. So because the minor intraday is bearish and it's in alignment with the swing, then I would more so argue a downside perspective or a downside bias. So let me zoom in. Yep, and I believe this is not an H4, it could be a daily. Looking at this earlier, yeah, we're looking at a potential daily POI off of a turbulence point right there. Turbulence point, continuation to the downside, and then now you're seeing potential move be shown there. Excuse me. So as of right now, although technically this is unwillingness, and this is technically a bullish break of structure, right? This is going to be your breaking point per se, because this is what's going to dictate whether we're going to convert to the bullish side, or if we fail and we can, obviously aim for previous lows. So Although the swing, in my opinion, is bearish right now. The only thing that's conflicting that is, right, the move that came into the POI, right? And then obviously you could see the change of character here, right? You could see the change of speed there. So where the character is shifted, I want to see if that's a potential point of inefficiency, and seeing just whatever can give us, or whatever type of reaction we get here should pretty much dictate where we go for the next week. Especially if we look at this week, I'm pretty sure this one looks a bit silly too as well. Yeah, just because we had a very impulsive week last week, and we are midway through the month, so I'm not really worried about monthly closures just yet. So who's to say from here we don't just fall? But that internal bullish area, I wouldn't call it a POI, I'd call it a bullish area, just because it's where the change of character is really going to dictate where we go, in my opinion. But the swing, as I said, is still technically bearish. So let's just see if that can come into play if we fail through, or we break through that area of interest. Excuse me. EU. This one is the one with the silly closure. It doesn't really look good at all from the weekly. If you zoom into the daily, we know that we were technically looking for the bullish continuation. However, I kind of want to argue more downside on this one. If we look here, if we look internally, we know that this is a higher time frame SC, but as of right now, the only thing that's really sticking out to me is the fact that we had, right, the internal reaction be confirmed. Because if we're looking at structure, whether you want to look at this high or this high into the low, that was never broken, so the confirmed reaction never played off based off of this bullish move here. So because we got the internal liquidity grab, we got the confirmed reaction based on the POI, and I mean, you could even see that the wick of interest is there, although there was 1 and 2 taps, so not necessarily strong order flow. But because this is now broken through again, right, although this is an unsubstantial new low, I kind of want to lean over towards that bearish sense. The only thing that would be negating that is if we zoom in, too much. Right, the only thing that's a bit concerning with that is where we are right now. As you can see, there are wicks here. So because there are wicks there, you're probably going to find something interesting. Wick of interest, but instead of looking at the wick of interest, just look at the inefficiency just to make sure you get that. So POI currently has reacted continuation BOS. So in my opinion now, the only way this is going to continue bearish is if, because we've already reacted from a POI and we've already solidified a low here, right? The only way we're probably going to see much deeper pricing is if we have another continuation BOS into the downside, and then you see the continuation. This would be technically a type of conservative move. You could obviously be aiming for previous lows, but that's really the only thing I see on this right now. The only thing that could be negating that, although in my opinion, is because we had an unsubstantial new low, and then while we have bullish order flow based on the wick, bullish order flow, if that is maintained and this is a turbulence point, then if this reaction breaks through here, and if we zoom in, right, if we are to break wick high with price, then in my opinion this entire sell scenario is invalidated, and you could start seeing a deeper retracement, or even just an overall conversion into the upside, or at the bare minimum, you know, reach the previous minor intraday high. So this one a bit tricky. The only reason why I see it could be tricky is because of the unsubstantial new low, and I know there's a lot of people that have seen this before. If you have a sign of unwillingness or an unsubstantial new low, then the immediate continuation is a little bit less likely. It's not an absolute thing, but if you backtest that, you do see that the failure rate is relatively consistent enough for me to try to avoid these types of scenarios. So like I said, I would only play based on the conservative approach and seeing which reaction or which direction the reaction will go. So that's that. Gold, this is the only one I think that played out from the bias that we had talked about. Right, and that was the turbulence point POI that we talked about. I personally did not see this completely just ripping up into the upside with, like this. This is probably the only one that I was a bit unexpected in terms of, you know, what the result was. But just because of where we are now, where we have reacted from, I don't see this coming lower. In my opinion, I don't see this coming down. I see this more so just continuing at least to the minimum, the target there. And if this is the pullback that, you know, that we talked about back in September, I believe, yeah, September, then we're looking at a pretty big move, in my opinion. At least a longer term bias. So if we have order flow disruption here, then you guys know the drill. It's bullish. But as of right now, I just cannot justify any reason as to why this does not continue higher. But yeah, gold moon probably. That's probably the most confident one I'm in for now, at least, especially with how we're closing the week. Extremely bullish, engulfing reaction, and you can see the big bullish candle there. So last one, US 30. This one, I believe we were looking for. This is kind of the same scenario from AU, where we see this kind of collapsing because of the internal CPOS. That's kind of what I want to see here, although it's kind of inverted because the CPOS is actually in alignment with the overall structural range. However, if we zoom in, right, the internal reaction, we already had that POI. We already talked about this conversion. But let me see where we were exactly 2 weeks ago. I mean, a month ago, the 17th. Okay, so we were here. I think we were pretty much just waiting to see what was going to happen in this POI, and then whatever happened based on that POI, we would pretty much dictate, you know, where this is going directionally. And as you can see, after the POI break, then you see high, low retracement, right? But that is already played out, and now you're seeing that play. However, I am still pretty bearish on this, especially with taking out this orange line, which is what we had pointed out as a very important target. And the reason why I look at it like that is because we got a low into a high, solidified high here because of the continuation POS. We now see the pullback begin. The pullback, right, obviously can, if we're looking at this, the pullback can obviously have different moves, but that's why we notice, right, internal reactions. The internal reaction solidifies the low as the pullback. So now that that's broken through, in my opinion, we are full on bearish. In terms of directional wise, that's kind of where I'm leaning towards, is the bearish side, just because of the confirmed reaction. So that kind of covers that. Bearish, bullish, maybe bearish, hopefully bullish. I guess that's like the entire gist of today. Does anybody have any questions, anything you guys want to cover? We can pretty much talk about anything. I do have time. But yeah, I hope everybody's doing well too. Yeah, any questions? How's everybody doing? Any feedback from the meeting? Oh, let me open the chat. Cool, I'm all ears. Also, let me see. I was gonna make a small change in Discord. For some people wondering about the tutoring tab. that's for the any type of one-on-ones, or if you want to do a 2-on-1, 3-on-1, whatever. I don't take PayPal anymore. I will be only taking crypto. Oh, wrong person. Cool. But does anybody have any questions? I'm doing good, bro. Nice to be back. Trading again, took some time to focus on other things. Yeah, man. Charts aren't going anywhere. Setups aren't going anywhere. If anything, I feel like it's just rinse and repeat this year. The psychological levels. No, I don't know what that is. I don't know how that works. Never. Oh, I heard of that, but that's probably like IML days. It's kind of like a support and resistance concept, I believe. Or it could be a geometry thing. I have no idea what that is. Show set up last week on EU. I took perfect, bro. If you want to show that, by all means.
Can you can hear my mic, bro?
Yeah, let me make sure you can share screen. Cool. Go for it. But yeah, psychological levels, don't use that at all.
My bad, bro. It's now let me oh, never mind. 1 second. All right, let's see if it lets me now. All right, yeah, I just want to show this sell setup I took on you guys can see my screen?
Yeah, everybody can see your screen.
Yeah, I was just gonna show a sell setup I took on EU. So obviously I left the charts end of like November, December. I had to focus on some other things, but long story short, just to give you a quick summary. Structure, obviously we can see it was bearish all last year. We can see that now we have a new leg right here. This was like the break of structure, range of character that I had. So the sell setup that I took last week on EU, I was basically playing within this range. So I was playing within these two ranges here. And 1 second. So prior to all this move happening this past week, we had EU basically. So we were here. So with EU, obviously we can see the continuation BOS. Some can look at this as inducement, so on and so forth. But really what I was really targeting was this unmitigated wick on the daily time frame. So I was aiming for this wick, where I know that you noted you were aiming for this wick on the 4-hour. So I was really waiting for just this POI to get hit. And so what happened with the sell setup that I did take, we had when you're studying the internal structure, we had price take this here. And so I'm gonna put that. So understanding internal structure, we have this entire leg here. So this solidifies this as this high. And so when I'm just reading the internal structure, we had a continuation BOS you consider here or here, either one that you want to do, because we do high, low, high, low, high, low, high, low. And if you want to look at this as a high to a low break, that would solidify this as a range. So we would have this be the range here after the break of this or this, however you want to see it. And so I knew that I wanted to target the daily POI, which I have noted again on the green. Oopsie, that I have noted with this wick, this unmitigated wick. So when price was, my bad. When price was here, I believe. Here, I was literally looking for a sell setup, and I didn't know where the sell setup. I don't know if we were going to mitigate this wick. 1 second. I'm kind of lost where I was at on the chart. Oh, all right. So we had price come. I knew I was looking for this daily POI. We had price come, and I used session levels. So basically, each color represents a certain session. So blue is New York. So we had a session level that price took here. And we can see during the red, which is usually the reversal window, we see price go ahead and take that liquidity. This was at like 11 o'clock Eastern time. And so from there, this is usually past my window, my trade time. So I really don't take a lot of trades past between 1 and 1:30. I don't take that many trades. After like 12 o'clock, I don't take any trades. So we had that liquidity snatch here. Again, you have to know our internal structure. We have this solidified internal range from this high to this low by the breaking of this based on this time frame, relative off the time frame you're talking about. So when price took that liquidity, I was really interested. So I wanted to see what happened the next day. And so I don't trade in between these times, is like from 2 p.m. Eastern until when you see green again, that'll be like 1 Eastern, which is Frankfurt. So I wasn't trading during this period of time. But obviously you can see here, session level again. As soon as we go into another session, we can see that price did take liquidity once again. Took the liquidity from a session level. We already cleared major liquidity. So instantly when price took this liquidity, this wick, I went down to the 1 minute time frame. We had an easy sell model, which was in session where there's volume, which you want to see. And then we have a break of structure here. I know this could be considered a continuation BOS. But when there's a POI that gets reached, I consider the break of structure. I consider that a change of character, which means like this to me is a full break on structure. Instead of waiting for this, I consider this the full on break of structure. So then obviously just using RCV methods, you want to sell in a premium. So obviously price reached a premium. And then what else do we have here? We have an efficiency, which is here. You had an efficiency up here too. You can use this as an invalidation. And so then pretty much basically the trade that I did take, I believe, 1 second. I mean, the trade I did take, must have deleted off my thing, was here, which was this sell setup. If you really want to be super precise, you could have just put at the 50% short setup. This would have been a 4 pip stop. If you want to cover spread, make it a 5 pip stop. Then where am I targeting? Obviously, I can target this liquidity point just to be conservative. This would be a 1 to 13. This would be an intraday type of setup. But obviously the main target that I want is I'm aiming for that green daily POI. So this would be the main target, which would have been like a 1 to 33. Obviously you're not holding your full volume, or depending on how you do it, then obviously we can see on lower time frames, we got the reaction from that POI, and validation was never met. And if I let this play out, we can see price goes ahead. So we took structure here. You would have went break even. And then when you let this play out, obviously we can see that price goes ahead and melts to the target, or melts all the way down to the target. So this was a great trade that I did take on EU, and I also took a couple of buys along the way when I was waiting for price to reach major session level up here. I did take some buys along the way, and I'll explain that really quick. Because this one was, those buys were, take the buy from a lot of my charts. But anyways, target was end up being met, which was there, and then we see price go ahead and let me zoom out a little bit. The price play on. Oh snap. Price never hit that daily POI, but I mean, at that point in time, you would have made money no matter what. You know what I mean? So aiming for external structure as well. So high, low. This would have been the solidified low into this entire range. So target would have been met. I still would have been aiming for this. I would have never took a loss had price pulled back anyways. So then obviously we can see when we go to the 4-hour time frame and we clear up all of our charts, we can see on the 4-hour time frame, there would have been no solidified structure if you're using the 4 hour time frame. So the 1 hour and the 4 hour had different solidified points, because on the 4 hour, I wouldn't consider this a solidified point. On the 4 hour time frame, I would have considered the break of this would have solidified this as being a range, which would have been here, this high to this low because of this right here. So this would have been my solidified range. And then obviously, again, this green POI is a daily time frame. And then we can see after solidifying, we mitigate something up here. And then we react perfectly, take all the liquidity, relative equal lows. We take this low, react to that daily POI perfectly. And now I'm aiming for looking at EU in the sense that we're going to be trying to attempt to clear this high. Obviously, this is an external target, so there's obviously objectives price has to do in order to reach that, but this would be the main higher time frame target. And when you do go and try and find an entry after that POI was met, I mean, depending on however you guys use entry models, you could have gotten into some type of move. You could have waited until this leg was taken out, whether here or the full leg taken out here, and found some type of move to get into on EU in order to take the move back to the upside. But the main move I just wanted to show you guys was that sell move that I did take, which was this one here. This one here, which did meet external target. So, but yeah, now we're seeing EU basically react from that daily POI. And then when you're really looking at it, you can look at price as this here. You can look at low. You can look at high, low, high. This was in the inducement, which solidifies this is the high. And so now we have another solidified low after it took this high. And now we could be aiming for this high here potentially and mitigate something down here if we go down to the 30-minute time frame, or if we go down to the 1 minute time frame, because I'm actually in a trade right now that I did take, which was basically me understanding on like the 30-minute where we were at. We had price now break this structure here. This would have been considered a continuation BOS based off of this leg, but when price broke back above it, that was disruption. We had price take out internal liquidity, which is here, because a lot of people would be playing this the last buy to sell as a POI. Price took the liquidity, and then we broke this structure here, and then you could have played anything within this candle here, that buy. So that's actually what I'm in right now. I got an entry right down here, and then I got an entry after taking this internal. I had a buy limit right after that with my stop down here, aiming for this scalp high. So yeah, that's just a quick little study for you guys that I
Yeah, I definitely do see that potentially also. Where's that you being a failed conversion, where you pointed out, I believe it was here, where you consider this technically as being like a failed conversion and low high retracement, and that could continue higher. I do see that.
Yep.
But let me see. Yeah, hopefully that turns out good for you. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, nice. That should be hitting his target soon. Cool. Any questions from anybody? Let's see. 17 on. Anybody? No more case studies, no more questions? Yes, bro, I already went over everything that happens at the beginning of the call. Alright guys, any more questions? Should I hold off more or should we end it off here? Alrighty guys, no questions. I will answer all of my journals right now. That's actually what I'm about to do right after the call. I'll make sure to upload this right now as well. Be a nice target met for him. Very nice. If anybody has any more questions, feel free to DM me and I will go from there. But I do appreciate you guys hopping on. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.